Welcome to Caregiving Club On Air. This podcast is dedicated to the millions of family caregivers who want wellness tips and self-care solutions, who seek expert advice, and who want news about healthy aging and how to create well home design in our forever homes. I'm Sherri Snelling, a corporate gerontologist, author, and educator, a TV interviewer, host, and news commentator. I'm joining you from Southern California, where our interviews and news take us all across the country to explore the many ways to help you on your caregiving journey and to lift you up here at Caregiving Club On Air. Welcome to our March episode of Caregiving Club On Air. I'm your host, Sherri Snelling, a gerontologist, author, and CEO of the Caregiving Club. So since March 16th through the 20th is Brain Health Awareness Week, we thought that we would focus on this topic and specifically on how the five senses interact with brain health, and specifically one sense, which is our sense of smell. So as many of you know, in my Me Time Monday book that I wrote about the five senses and how since our ancient beginnings, we have not used them, as more important parts of our lives. We don't smell as well. We don't hear as well. We don't see as well because we're focused on the technology doing things for us. We're doing things where we're not living out on the vast, savanna in Africa, where we have to be aware of so many different things with our five senses. And this is ultimately dulled those senses and has impacted our overall brain health. So with that, we have got one of the most noted researchers in the world on the topic of the neuroscience of how the brain works and its interaction, particularly with the olfactory sense, which is the sense of smell. And that is Dr. Michael Leon. He is the professor emeritus at the University of California at Irvine, or UCI as we know it, out here in Southern California. And his research has, run a vast range over the years of looking from at brain health disorders and diseases like autism all the way through Alzheimer's, but specifically how this sense of smell interacts with our brain to maybe be able to address some of these issues that we have with brain disorders. And, how can we enhance, the things that we're suffering from by using the sense of smell. So it's really, you're going to love this interview. It's so fascinating. And I think it really gives you insights as to how we have to start to pay better attention to our five senses. And along those lines, Dr. Leon is also the creator of a new product called Memory Air, which is a wellness home product. We're going to explain to you what that means, but it's specific around kind of air care, but also, creating memory, enhancing sleep through the use of different senses at night. So you're just going to love this interview. I'm not going to take up any more time, but we're going to dive right in to our interview with Dr. Michael Leon. Well, I am so delighted to have our expert guest on this podcast, which is Dr. Michael Leon, and he is the Sir Emeritus at UCI, which is University of California at Irvine, for those of you who aren't Southern Californians. Dr. Leon, welcome to Caregiving Club On Air.
Hiya.
Well, it's so great to have you because you really are recognized as one of the worldwide leaders in research around sense, of our five senses, the sense of smell, and how that really, works with brain health, but also identifying certain markers, if you will, and red flags and things for Alzheimer's disease. But before we jump into your research, I want to just ask you, where are we talking to you from today?
I'm in San Juan Capistrano, Southern California.
Beautiful, beautiful places. We both know gorgeous weather. We hate to, unfortunately, we know a lot of our friends out there are in some horrendous weather patterns right now, but you can't beat the SoCal weather, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Well, as I mentioned, you've really done some of the most seminal leading research in this area of sense, the sense of smell, and also how that relates to our brain health and things like dementia and Alzheimer's. Tell us a little bit about some of your research, which I found really fascinating, particularly some of the research maybe that was done with older adults.
Well, just to step back for a moment, the human brain evolved at a time when there were plenty of odors around. Nobody ever took a shower, for example, and so we've cleaned up the environment. We've cleaned up ourselves, and so we don't have much olfactory stimulation. In fact, if you took a deep breath now, my guess is that none of you would smell anything. And so that may be pleasant, but the point is that your brain actually needs this kind of stimulation. So we've been walking around with brains that have been deprived of the stimulation that they need to remain healthy. And so without that kind of stimulation, your brain actually loses the integrity of your memory centers of your brain and the emotional centers of your brain. And you can see this as people age. At the age of 60, your ability to smell things starts to fall off a cliff and keeps going downhill for the rest of your life. And that's also true of the emotional center of your brain. They both deteriorate as you age. And as you age, you could see both olfactory ability and memory decline at the same time and at the same rate. They go hand in hand for the rest of your life. On the other hand, you can stimulate the brain with the olfactory stimuli and improve both the memory centers and the emotional centers of your brain.
Which I find so fascinating. I've looked into the connection to the five senses and our brain health, and just what you said. We certainly don't use all those five senses in the most acute way that we used to, and some of that is really dulling the effect of our ability to have better brain health. So you did a really fascinating study. Maybe you can share some of that with us on older adults and how you could, as you said, kind of stimulate the brain cells using sense and different sensory activity.
Yeah, so we had older adults. They were healthy older adults, but older adults tend to start losing their memory. And so we gave them olfactory enrichment, which is different odors on a regular basis. And we did it while they were sleeping because that allows us to get full compliance. The things that you do really don't make sense unless people actually do it. And we found that there was a 226% improvement relative to controls on memory tests. And that's the biggest improvement in memory that anyone has ever found for this group.
Yeah, one of the things you said is that as we get older, like with everything else, our eyesight, our hearing, our gray hairs, we do kind of start to lose certain abilities to be maybe as strong or as acute as they were. Do you find that you can, with the stimulation, can you create new sensory memories, or are you tapping into the sensory memory? Like I think about the famous Marcel Proust and the Madeleines that he smelled when he wrote his famous, novel. Is it tapping into those older memories, or are you creating kind of the newer memories?
So what we're doing is taking advantage of the fact that the only sense that has a superhighway direct access to the memory centers and the emotional centers of the brain is the olfactory system. All of the other senses have to go through the brain's side streets. And so consequently, they have much less impact on memory and emotion than the olfactory system has. In fact, by middle age, your all-cause mortality, whether you die for any reason at all, can be accurately predicted by your ability to smell things.
Wow.
And
Wow, that's fascinating.
among healthy older adults, you can predict which ones will develop mild cognitive impairment, the first problem on the road to dementia. And among the people with mild cognitive impairment, you can predict which ones will develop Alzheimer's disease based on their ability to smell things. And among those individuals, you can predict which ones will descend rapidly into their dementia based on their ability to smell things. So there's a very close relationship between olfaction and the development of Alzheimer's disease and dementias of all sorts. All the dementias that have been studied have olfactory loss.
Okay. So one question I have is, when we talk about brain health and dementia, we know that there are certain things that are just a normal part of aging, right? Maybe you misplaced the keys or you can't remember one of your 8 grandchildren's names right away or whatever it is. That's kind of normal aging. And then we talk about the abnormal aging, which points more to maybe a dementia or Alzheimer's risk or red flag. Are there similar things within the smell olfactory? Is it like, okay, we know that our sense of smell will decline with age, but there are certain things that maybe we should be looking out for?
Well, pretty much everybody's sense of smell will go downhill as they age, along with their memory and along with their emotional status. So it's just part of aging. Some people have it worse than others. For example, people who've lost their ability to smell during COVID have an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, right? And so it's probably a good idea to stimulate the olfactory system to avoid that problem.
So one of the things I found really interesting in reading through your research and some of the articles and things around what you're doing in your research is that, we know now with brain health, we call it brain training, brain exercises, not brain games. There's a differentiation between that. And I know there's been some fantastic studies. In fact, a recent one that was just announced called the ACTIVE study, I think, that was done over a 20-year period showing how these certain brain exercises where you're working out kind of multi areas of, cross training in your brain, not just doing one area, is really helpful. So you have something you called scent training, which I love. Tell us more about what that entails.
Well, we have developed a device called Memory Air that sits on your nightstand and blows 40 pleasant scents at you as you're sleeping. And the experience of having 40 scents every day turns out to be really important. It's even been shown to improve the memory of people with dementia. And in dramatic form. So people who experience 40 cents a day, twice a day, actually, they improve, even though they're demented, they improve their memory on 5 standard memory tests, ranging from 100% better than controls to 300% better than controls.
Wow.
And that's incredibly better than anything else out there. Not only that, but their depression symptoms improved by 325% relative to controls. So this is by far the best approach to treating dementia.
Which is so fascinating to me. And I want to talk a little bit more about that Memory Air product. But let me ask you this. You said there's 40 different scents that you kind of blow out through this Memory Air product. Are there certain scents, though, that are maybe more powerful or more helpful than others? Or is this combination that's really making the difference?
So it's certainly possible that some of these scents are better than others at making people have better memories and better emotional status. But we don't know that for a fact. But we do know that it's the multiplicity of odors that turns out to be critical. So you need a lot of different odors. There are a lot of different olfactory receptors that need to be stimulated to get the full effect. And when you do, it really is critical for improving the health of the brain.
Wow, this is just so fascinating to me. So, we're talking obviously about maybe older adults. When we say older adults, I guess people over 50, although being 62, I don't consider myself an older adult yet, but I think that's probably true of most of us. But, we do also know that some of the beginnings of dementia and Alzheimer's can start 15, 20 years before a diagnosis. What can people who are younger do in terms of to set train? I mean, is this as beneficial for someone who's in their 30s and 40s as for someone who's in their 50s, 60s, or 70s?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of interest in memory air from people between 35 and 55, particularly men in that age range. And so, if you want to keep your brain healthy, this is a way to do that. And the nice thing about it is that it takes no effort. When you get the memory air device, you put it on your nightstand, you put in a scented belt that has the 40 different odors. You press a button before you go to sleep, and you don't actually have to press a button again. Every month you get a belt in the mail, you put it in, and you don't have to do anything else. And that really differentiates it from anything else because people tend not to do the things that they're being asked to do for these other kind of training procedures.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love that simplicity. I'm not somebody who would, try not to do things, but I just forget to turn things on or turn things off or whatever I'm supposed to be doing. Also, if you are, helping out a loved one who has dementia or some type of early memory loss, you can forget to turn those things on. So this makes it simple and really easy. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, so, some of the things that I found were interesting is that you're talking about spurring that memory around scent and getting that to kind of interact with, overall brain health. But you've also said, I think, that this memory air can help with that good restorative sleep that we all know we should be getting, again, that helps out overall brain health. So do the two kind of go in hand? So you're improving memory, but also are you improving sleep?
So we found that people who were using olfactory enrichment slept 22 minutes a night more than people who were in the control group, which is good in itself. But there are now 4 studies showing that olfactory enrichment during sleep improves particularly deep sleep. So deep sleep is the most restorative part of sleep. And if you increase deep sleep, that turns out to be important because as people get older, they have less and less deep sleep, and so less and less restorative action going on while they're sleeping. And of course, the ability to have the deep sleep involves what is called the glymphatic system. The glymphatic system is like the lymphatic system for the rest of the body, but it's only in the brain. And what happens is that arterial pressure, the pumping of the blood through the arteries in the brain, pushes out the fluid that is collected over the course of the day. And this fluid contains the metabolic waste that the brain has generated. And if you don't get rid of the fluid waste that your brain has generated, you get this foggy feeling. It's like when you have a bad night's sleep. That feeling is the feeling that generates because you haven't gotten rid of the metabolic waste in your brain. And as people get older, they have less and less of this deep sleep. And so the metabolic waste tends to accumulate. And it's actually been called the final common pathway for dementia, right? It's so sensitive that if you sleep on your back, and so this system has to push all the metabolic waste against gravity, you have a 400% improved likelihood of developing Alzheimer's disease. Right?
Wow.
How
Yeah.
sensitive it is.
I mean,
And
there's,
so
yeah.
we think what we're doing is we're improving the glymphatic system so that it gets rid of this metabolic waste and allows you to have a healthy brain.
Yeah, it's such an exciting time. I know that the whole study of neuroscience has really been exploding over the last 30 plus years. We're learning so much more about how our brains work. Going back to kind of those 5 senses, and we were talking a little bit about that, the fact that we don't spend time just looking at things and focusing on things in our environment, the smell, the taste, the sounds, all of those other things. What kind of advice do you have, maybe either specific to smell or just the 5 senses in general, but what other advice, other than doing a memory air product, can we do to kind of help create some of that better memory, some of that kind of better sense awareness?
So I think the first thing as people get older is that they try to avoid doing anything to correct the problems that come with aging. So, for example, if your lenses are clouding up, many people try to wait as long as they can before they have the surgery to replace them. Uh, you should do that as soon as you feel like it's a problem. Similarly, people have hearing loss. And men are 5 times more likely to have hearing loss than women, but they are much less likely to get a hearing aid. And loss of hearing turns out to increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease, among other things. And so it's just hard to get people to do that. Another thing that is, I think, surprising to most people is that chewing is important for your brain health as you age. And most people have no idea that that's important. But as people get older, they tend to say, oh, I'll just have one of these drinks that have all the calories in them. Easy to use. I just open it up. I don't have to cook. The problem is that if you don't chew, your brain starts to deteriorate, particularly the memory parts of your brain. And this has been shown in a number of ways. People should exercise. If you don't exercise, that's a problem for your brain and your heart and pretty much everything else, including your emotional status. So all these things are known, I think. The problem is that it's hard to get people to do them. And that's one of the advantages of having olfactory enrichment. As you're sleeping, you don't have to do anything to get the stimulation that your brain needs.
You're making it as easy as possible.
Well, I mean, for example, everybody knows that exercise is good for you, but among older adults, only 15% of men and 10% of women get even the minimal amount of exercise. So everybody knows it. It's just hard to get people to do it.
Hard to do it, yes. I have another question that we hadn't discussed, so forgive me. I don't want to throw you a curveball, but as you're talking, I'm kind of fascinated. I had spoken to another researcher out of the University of Oxford, Dr. Charles Spence. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he does a lot of research in more like dining and tastes, and of course smells because they're so related, taste and smell, and then music and how certain types of music can trigger. So, for instance, he found that certain types of music that was higher on the scale could trigger the food to taste more sweet, versus on the lower end of the scale, it could trigger the food to taste more savory, despite the fact that you would maybe taken salt or taken sugar out of those things or whatever. I don't know if you are familiar with that research or if you have any comment on it, but I'm just kind of fascinated by how our brain works when it comes to the sense of smell and how that can change things for us with all the
Yeah.
5 senses working together.
Yeah. So the senses can have interesting interactions. For example, if there was once a shampoo that was colored green, and it smelled like cut grass, and everybody sort of identified it. And that was actually the marketing hook that they used. It was the odor that you should use our shampoo for. The interesting thing, in my view, is that when they changed the color of the shampoo from green to orange, people started to smell it in a completely different way. They thought it smelled like an orange.
Wow.
And so there's this wonderful interaction. You can see that with wine as well. So if you take wine, white wine, and you use an odorless, tasteless red dye, and you put it in the white wine, people start describing it as red wine. Even wine connoisseurs, sommeliers, they taste the white wine colored red, and they start describing it as having all these red wine characteristics. So
Wow.
even experts can be fooled by the color. So there's an interesting interaction among the senses.
I love that. Well, I'm not my family always laughs because I'm not a big fan of Brussels sprouts. I love vegetables, but that's one that's not on my list. Maybe if I were coloring it a different color, I might be more interested in the Brussels sprouts. Well, this has just been a fascinating conversation, and I want to go back to the memory error. By the way, congratulations, because I know you're now working with memory care communities, assisted living. One of the larger ones in the United States is Silverado, who I think just partnered with you to bring memory error into the residents, apartments and living space. Um, I know it can be a little pricey for individuals, but tell us a little bit about where we can find the memory air product, the cost, and do you have payment plans?
Yeah,
Because I
so
think, when we look at air, and I should say, I say pricey, but when you really think about it, you're going to have this hopefully for years. If you look at all the months that you're getting that benefit, it really isn't that pricey after all.
so it's $7.99 for the device and $39 a month for the belt. Uh, we have calculated out that if you use it for 5 years, and we've tested it so that we know it'll certainly last at least 5 years, it comes to $1.50 a day. Uh, so, how much is your memory worth?
Right.
We also have a payment plan. If you want to do it that way, it's $75 a month, and that allows you to have the stimulation that your brain needs without any effort.
Which is fantastic. And do they find it on the memoryair.com? Is that the right URL?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, fantastic. Well, this has been fascinating. Is there anything that, we haven't covered, any other insights that you have for the audience just when it comes to this sense of smell, brain health, memory?
So we think there are three ways that memory air is doing good for your brain. One is just direct stimulation, sort of a use it or lose it phenomenon. So you stimulate your olfactory system, stimulates the memory centers and the emotional centers of your brain. That's great. The second mechanism we think is going on is that all of these pleasant scents decrease inflammation, which is a critical aspect of aging. And so that's probably the second mechanism that we use. And the third one is the improvement in sleep, particularly deep sleep, that allows your brain to get rid of all of the metabolic waste. So we think that it does your brain good in three ways.
Which is fantastic. And as I said, we're so much more focused now on our health and prevention. We know how vital this is. So if you know that you could stave off or, withhold any kind of diagnosis just by taking these few steps, I think it's just phenomenal. And I'm so interested in kind of the well home, working in the space of long-term care and caregiving. I know about, the universal design, which makes things safe and assisted. But now I think we're kind of transitioning into this well home design, which is really more about how our environment supports all of our health, including things like air care, like memory air for memory and all that. So thank you for being the creator of this.
My pleasure.
Well, it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you for joining us again, Dr. Leon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode. A reminder, you can find more information in my book, Me Time Monday, The Weekly Wellness Plan to Find Balance and Joy for a Busy Life, or visit MeTimeMonday.com or CaregivingClub.com. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Caregiving Club On Air. Please hit the subscribe button. To listen to us on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, SiriusXM, iHeartRadio, Pandora, as well as other listening channels. Check out all the resources and article links on our episode guide page at caregivingclub.com. Just hit the podcast tab at the top and email us with comments and questions at podcast@caregivingclub.com. Thank you again for listening, and take care and stay well.